Welcome back everyone to Sourdough Educational Series, video number 6. Today I want to explain the 5 most common misconceptions in sourdough. I've been hearing a lot of misconceptions, and that's why I want to clear up the confusion out there. Misconception number 1. Sourdough doesn't contain yeast. I've been hearing many people say, I do sourdough because of my intolerance to yeast. Sourdough, it does contain yeast. You might be intolerant to yeast because everybody is different, but most probably you are intolerant to the gluten that is not being broken down by the sourdough culture. You've been eating a dough that is not fully fermented and thus full of gluten, and gluten is the toughest protein in nature to be digested from our digestive system, and that's why you feel bloated, heavy, lethargic, and many people has an intolerance to gluten which make them sick. Sourdough, it does contain yeast, wild yeast. It's a form of yeast that is present in the air and is the same yeast that you find in commercial yeast. So now you will say, what makes the sourdough different? So the difference is in the amount of yeast found in sourdough. So sourdough contains millions of microorganisms, which some of them have lactobacillus bacteria and wild yeast. The name of the yeast that you find in sourdough, which is the same that you find in dry yeast and fresh yeast, is Saccharomyces cerevisiae. And this is the type of fungus that lives in the environment, and it is present when you do your sourdough starter culture, because he looks for food, and when you combine water and flour together, you make the food available for them, which is carbohydrates. And they convert the carbohydrates from complex to simple and having byproduct, making the bread or the pizza rise thanks to the CO2 that they produce. The commercial yeast is the concentrated form of yeast, and when used in dry or fresh form, will make your bread proof very quickly, and that's what we don't want in sourdough, because we need the time to allow the bacteria, the lactobacillus, to break down the gluten. So having a bread that is made purely with dried or fresh yeast will speed up the fermentation and will lose health benefit. While using sourdough, because the sourdough contains a very minimal part of the wild yeast, this will ferment the bread slowly, and that lactobacillus bacteria will have time to break down the gluten. Misconception number 2. Sourdough is gluten-free. Sourdough, it can be made with wheat flour, rye flour, or other grains. Sourdough made with wheat is not gluten-free, even though it can be gluten intolerance friendly. Why? Because the lactobacillus bacteria, they break down the gluten in amino acid, and that will make the digestive process much easier. Misconception number 3. Gluten-free, it can be sourdough. Yes, it can be. It depends on the flour that you're using. And because of the bacteria, they thrive on carbohydrates, you can make sourdough with any flour, okay? So if you use rice flour, potato flour, any kind of flour that contains carbohydrates, that's the food that the bacteria requires to make the metabolic process. So the question is, can you have sourdough gluten-free? Yes, absolutely yes. You can do gluten-free sourdough. You're just using gluten-free flour and follow the same exact process, because the bacteria are the same and they thrive on carbohydrates. So find out flour that doesn't contain gluten and use it for making your own sourdough starter. Obviously, it won't have the same effect when you're making bread if you compare the wheat flour with gluten-free flour, because the consistency, the structure of the bread, which is the gluten, it won't be there. Gluten-free flour has a completely different consistency. Sourdough can be gluten-free. Misconception number 4. Sourdough starter, it's very complex. It's very hard to maintain. That's a very common thing out there. Can't stress enough when I see so many people just feeding the starter every single week or every day or every couple of days just for the sake of maintaining the sourdough starter alive and strong. Yet, yes, it is true that if the more you feed, the more the bacteria will be strong and you will have better result. But let's understand this. If you're just a beginner and you just want bread out of the oven, edible and nice and soft, then you don't need to feed your starter every single day. I teach the no waste method. The concept is that you need to understand that the sourdough starter bacteria requires food to survive. If you understand the science behind it, what they affect the sourdough starter, you will understand and you can make a good sourdough starter even if being left in the fridge with multiple feeding until you get the acidity balance, because that's what most important. The acidity produced by the bacteria, if it's too much, it will break the gluten and will ruin your bread. You need to dilute the acidity of the starter is if the sourdough starter has been left in the fridge too long. If you do multiple feeding just when you need it, instead of feeding every single day or every single week, it will save you tons of flour. Misconception number 5, sourdough is very sour. No, you can make sourdough as you like, and it's not true that sourdough needs to be sour. The beauty of making sourdough bread at home, that you can manage, you can adapt your recipe, the fermentation, the timing as you like, having the result that you like. If you like a bread that is not sour, then you will just need to do certain things. If you need more sour, you can certainly do more sour. Hope this video clarified a lot of misconception out there. If you have some of misconception that I didn't cover in this video, please let me know and I'll make a video for you. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe to my channel. I'm on a mission to educate 1 million of Australians on the art of sourdough baking, fighting gluten intolerance, and if you allow me to do that, I would much appreciate it. Share this video and I'll see you on the next one. Ciao belli!